It seemed like all hope was lost, and my only thought was, we're going to need a helicopter to get out of this one. Hi, my name is Michael Johnson. I'm a ballroom dance professional, a life coach, and a peak performance expert. I'm part of a group of motivated people who are dedicated to attaining emotional mastery and unlocking our full potential. We've realized life is a dance. The ups and downs can spin you out of your mind, but it's time to take back control. It's time to become a lifer. We don't believe others are responsible for how we feel. In fact, we don't believe anyone can make us feel anything. We are a new breed of overachievers. Emotional mastery is our journey, and unlocking our full potential is the key. Welcome to the journey. We are lifers, and this is Magic for Life. What's up, lifers? Michael Johnson here with the Magic for Life podcast. I'm so glad you joined me today. Back when I was young, I grew up riding horses. I know I'm a ballroom dancer, I'm a life coach, peak performance coach. Just another part of my life that, I could have ended up pursuing. You never know. Could have ended up being in horse shows and competitions there. But that wasn't quite the path. But I did learn how to ride horses growing up. And it was a lot of fun. And who would have thought that when I moved to Jersey, off to go after my professional career, that I would have ended up riding horses and making money at it, and that was kind of a crazy turn. So every week I'd ride some people's horses and get paid for it because they weren't riding their horses anymore, and they just wanted some people to make sure that the horses got exercise. They just weren't doing it enough, and they knew the horses needed some extra attention and some extra time. So it was one of the things I got to do early on in my professional career of doing ballroom dance, and it was awesome. So for those of you that don't know much about New Jersey, it is the densest state in the union. That means there's more people in a small amount of space than anywhere else in the United States. However, that's just in the cities. Out on the skirts of New Jersey is the most beautiful forest area, and they would probably call them mountains, but they were mostly hills, very large hills. But there was just tons of open space. And these horses were on a ranch out kind of in the middle of nowhere, and so you could go riding for literally days and days out into just the forest area, and we went on some amazing rides. And when I say we, I'd always grab one of my friends to go with me so that I could get a couple horses exercise all at once. So it reminded me of this story that I wanted to tell you. And one day we went out, grabbed the horses. We decided we were going to go on a whole day ride, which is a pretty big deal. You got to plan ahead a little bit and make sure you take enough supplies and plan for the fact that you'll be out for a very long time. Give the horses rest along the way, know how you're going to get them water, that type of thing. Make sure you have food and that you've packed enough to sustain the day ride. And we set out to go a direction. We had looked at, me and my buddy, we had looked at the maps, and there was no Google Maps. So really it was, looking up on paper maps to kind of get an idea and general idea of the direction we were going to go and where we were headed. And we were going to just go until we couldn't go anymore, until we knew we had gone far enough that we weren't going to make it back. So we packed up, got the horses ready, and headed out on this adventure for the day. And we left at about probably 6 a.m. or so. So we had a real early start before the sun came up. And we just went on this ride. And the first part of the ride was all where we had gone before. We had checked out this path, and we had gone maybe 2, 3, 4 hours out in this direction. And so we knew where we were going. But we were planning on going much farther this time and continuing through the woods and forest of New Jersey. And we were having a great time. We stopped for lunch, I think, at one point, and we were so far out. But the forest is pretty dense, and there's some trails, and there were things along the way that we could kind of find our way. But in a lot of instances, we were making our own trail, which means that we were kind of out in the middle of nowhere. So as we continued to progress, we had been riding literally for 4 or 5 hours. I mean, it was a long time. And we had just gone up this mountain, no trail, just working our way through the mountain, working our way through the trees. Of course, you're out with the wildlife, so you have to pay very close attention to what's out there. Obviously the horses don't like bears, and neither do I. So we were paying close attention to what was going on and doing our fair share of making lots of noise, hopefully scaring away the wildlife that would be threatening. But we had worked our way up this mountain and kind of got into a flat area, and it was a tough ride because we were not on a trail. We were just going through the trees and sort of working our way through the underbrush, which was a little bit challenging, but so much fun. We were just having a ball. And as we continued, we got to the flat area just above this little hill, and still working our way through the brush and the trees, and it was really thick. But then all of a sudden, you could kind of see a little bit ahead. There was a little bit of a clearing, and you could kind of see through the trees that there was a clearing up ahead. And as we approached it, we started to come out of this tree line. And out ahead of us, all that was left was this massive, massive area that just was totally cleared out. There were no trees. It was just grass area for what looked like 4 or 5 miles. I mean, just absolutely clear ahead. There wasn't any hills. It was just what looked like flat for as far as the eye could see. And we had been on this ride for a while, my buddy and I, and we kind of, as we came to that clearing, there was this huge energy between the two of us. Now, those of you that haven't ridden horses, running on a horse is such a great experience. Being able to gallop on a horse is a lot of fun, but when you can allow that horse to hit their full stride and their full run, oh my gosh, this is one of the most fun things that you can do. The horse loves it. They just get to be free, and they get to go and run and sort of let out all of their energy. And as the rider, it's quite an experience. You're on this other living creature, and they're just booking it, going as fast as they can, and it is so much fun. So as we came out of that clearing, we sort of walked a little bit further past that clearing, probably about 10, 15, 20 feet. We weren't talking because the view was amazing. I mean, honestly, like I said, 5 miles maybe worth of just clearing out ahead of us, and just as far as the eye could see. And he and I looked at each other, and we kind of gave each other that look, We didn't even talk. We just kind of gave each other that look. And without saying a word, both of us just were like, yeah, and we gave the horse the cue, and we both just bolted, took off running as fast as that horse could go. And the horse knew it, because the horse could see, and they were antsy, and they were excited because we had been going through so much thick forest area. And so the horses didn't need much prodding. And we just took off and started running as fast as we could go. And just about as fast as they hit their stride, we were going. And it felt like probably 100 yards, maybe the length of a football field, maybe 2, because these horses were fast. And we were running full sprint, full on, and just enjoying the wind through our hair. And all of a sudden, I noticed my feet were getting closer and closer to the ground. And I remember that moment, and time started to stand still. We're running, full on running, right? And my buddy was next to me. The horses were kind of racing each other at this point. And I look over to him, and I notice his feet are getting closer to the ground too. And I look down, and all of a sudden, my feet are literally touching the ground. Now, if you've ever ridden a horse or even seen a horse, they're tall. Your feet should not be touching the ground while you're running. But everything started to slow down, and all of a sudden, I realized we were in a swamp. But it looked like it was flat ground. And I hopped off the horse. Well, okay, I didn't hop off. I literally stood and took my other foot off of the horse because the horse had started sinking into the ground. My buddy's horse was sinking into the ground. We both realized it, and we tried to turn the horse around as fast as we could. Now, his horse was the stronger horse. Mine was a little bit older and maybe a little bit less strong in comparison. And we had kind of turned our horses because we realized this at the same time. And I had jumped off my horse. He had jumped off his horse. The horses all of a sudden realized we were in a dire situation. They were sinking into this mud, and it was mud. It was acting like quicksand, but for the weight of their body, their feet were basically sticks, like toothpicks, going into the mud. And so I was standing there, but I didn't weigh enough to actually sink into this mud. So I'm standing there, and I'm only maybe a little bit in. My feet have kind of lowered into the mud a little bit. And I kind of turned the horse's head around. I'm yanking on the reins. He's trying to pull his horse out, and he's just going. We're both working as hard as we can, and we're like, come on, pull out. And we're just like, encouraging the horses as much as we could. My buddy gets back to the bank, and he just worked his butt off to get his horse back to the bank. He ties the horse to the nearest tree, and I could hear him yelling, "Come on, just keep pulling." And my horse was getting tired, and there's a clear look on a horse when they're just getting tired, when they're out of breath, they're out of stamina, they've got nothing left, and my horse had nothing left. And so I'm pulling, he's like, "Just hang on, I'm going to come back out." And so he grabbed one of the ropes that he had tied to his saddle, which wasn't really much of a rope. I don't know what we had. We didn't have much. And he runs back out full swing. He's got one end of the reins. I've got one of the reins. We're like smacking the horse on the butt, just trying to pull it. And literally we came to a dead stop. And that was it. That was the moment I remember thinking to myself, this is like one of those Animal Planet moments where you see the helicopter flying in with something that they strap into the horse because the horse is drowning and they have to airlift the horse out. And I'm thinking to myself, these aren't my horses. I'm just riding them. What have I done? What did we do? I can't believe we did this. What is happening? And little by little, we just kept moving that horse. And I remember that dead stop, though, in that moment. And me and my buddy, I swear we were probably crying at the time because we felt so bad for this horse. It was working so hard trying to get out, and it was scared out of its mind. We were scared out of our mind, and we just kept going. We just kept pushing. And finally, my buddy ran back, and he's like, "Let me get the other horse." So we had kind of pulled out just a little bit, and so he comes back with that rope again, and we kind of tied it to the reins, and I'm like trying to do everything, push from behind, just trying to pull the horse out. We tied the reins to the rope on his horse, and he started trying to back out, but we couldn't bring his horse back in far enough because their hooves and legs would sink right back down into that swamp. And I just remember thinking, come on, just keep pushing. And we did everything we could, but we just kept going, and we didn't give up. And little by little, we made it, that 200 yards back, pulling that horse out. We got the horse out, and it was exhausted. This poor horse was out of every ounce of energy. We were out of energy, and we kind of tied the horse to the tree, both of the horses to the trees, and we just fell to the ground exhausted. And it was quite the experience. It was something else. We were absolutely scared out of our mind for these horses. You had this life of this horse in your hands, and this poor horse, oh my gosh, what it went through to get out of this. And you can imagine that it was so afraid for its life. But we just didn't give up. We just didn't give up. We knew we had to get these horses out of that situation. And we just didn't give up. We just kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And eventually, after massive amounts of energy spent and a massive amount of time, we finally got out. And in hindsight, I look back and wonder what I would have done differently. There's so many instances. You've got all these sayings like "look before you leap," but honestly, we don't regret. I talked to my buddy about it. We don't regret one bit. Booking out there. In hindsight, I might have walked it a bit longer. You know what I mean? But just to know that it wasn't a swamp. But in hindsight, I probably would have done it again, like without knowing. And maybe now if I went out to do it, I'd probably, scout it out a little bit better and know that it was solid ground. But it certainly wasn't in my thought at the time. So I don't know that I would change that. But what I would do again is work that hard and not give up. And one of the things I learned from it is that when all things are against you and when all hope is gone and all the odds are against you, you just have to keep pushing. You just have to keep pushing. You have to never give up. Never give up. When all hope is lost and you think, gosh, the only way out of this is some massive extreme way, just keep pushing. Just keep pushing, because if you give up, you're done. In this particular case, this horse's life was in our hands, and we just kept pushing, and we didn't give up. Let me tell you, that was a long, long ride home. We were so thankful we got these horses out of that situation, but they were so exhausted, both of them. And so during periods of that walk home, we didn't ride our horses back. They were exhausted, so we walked them. And gosh, what an experience. But all I can tell you guys out there, for those of you that are having hard times, for those of you that all hope has been lost, never give up. Never give up. Just keep pushing. Just keep going. You'll make it. Never give up. Thanks for joining me on the podcast. We'll see you next time. Want more Magic for Life? If so, then reserve your copy of my new book. Get your copy at everyminutebook.com. Inside this book, you'll find the secrets to attaining the next level of performance in anything you do. Learn the secrets behind emotional mastery that'll start you on your new journey of being a lifer. Whether you're an athlete, a business professional, or an artist, this book will change your life forever. Get your copy reserved today.